Alright, hello everybody and welcome back to another video, and I already recorded this once, so I might go through it a little faster this time. Today we're going to be talking about the basics of Dota 2. Dota 2 is a very hard game to get into, especially for new players, and especially in this day and age, 2020. It's not a very healthy place for new players. The community is very toxic and not very welcoming. Today I'm going to try to make it a little easier for y'all to get into this game. Right, so let's start with the positions. There are 5 positions in Dota 2. Your hero choice will impact that role. So, for example, you have your position 1, that's going to be your carry. Position 2, that's going to be your mid laner. Position 3, that's going to be your off laner. Position 4 is going to be your soft support. And position 5 is going to be your hard support. We'll touch on every role, of course, and let's get started with the first role. That would be the carry. So your carry role, generally, they're just trying to get as much farm as they possibly can, especially in the early game. They're going to play in the top lane. They're going to play in the top lane, and they're going to have a position 5 with them. The hard support is going to be with them up top. So, farming. Basically, all you need to do is kill creeps and make sure you get that last hit on them. Make sure that you hit them last. Make sure you're the one that kills them, if that makes sense. So, like, look, I got the gold there because I hit him last. Like, literally, all you gotta do is farm creeps, farm creeps, farm creeps, which are these guys right here. Gotta farm the creeps, and eventually you'll get to a high enough level where you can take on jungle creeps. Say the enemy offlaner is giving you a rough time in lane. Feel free to farm some creeps for a while, some jungle creeps for a while. You have both of these jungles at your disposal, this one right here, and then the one in the bottom lane, this whole jungle. And there's plenty of places to farm. If you say you're running out of places to farm, you're just not looking in the right spot. The carry position needs farm, especially with heroes like Anti-Mage, who need a ton of farm to come online. If you're behind on levels and gold with Anti-Mage, then you might as well just give up there.
By grace.
So your carries are going to dominate the late game. They are going to be what wins you the match. They're going to get the frags late game, and they're going to carry you to win the game. Simple as that. So just make sure you're getting that farm. That's pretty much all you need to know. And a couple of heroes that I recommend to new carry players would be heroes like Juggernaut or heroes like Sven. Are both very good choices for a beginner carry. So next up, let's move on to the mid lane. The mid lane is probably one of the hardest roles in Dota because there's so much outplay potential. Outplay potential, what do you mean by that? Well, since it's just you in lane versus just someone else in lane, it all depends on how well you're doing. You need to make sure you're getting your last hits because the mid laners are basically, they're going to be dominating the early game. They're going to be that early game carry. Because it's just them in lane against just someone else in lane, which means you're getting all the farm, while in these other lanes, you've got someone else, another teammate farming with you, right? They're gonna get XP. Y'all are gonna split XP and gold. Not entirely the gold part, but y'all are gonna split XP. So basically, your mid laner is going to hit those high levels much faster than everybody else. So when you hit level 6, 7 as your mid, you're generally gonna want to leave lane. Not all the time, but most of the time, and start ganking. By ganking, I mean going down to either the bottom lane or going up to the top lane and helping out those lanes by taking out some of their heroes. So their objective really is to just give your friendly carry as much time as you can to let him farm up so he can take over the late game. So you're just going to dominate the early game and mid game. You can still do a lot in the late game if you're a really good mid. You can still definitely carry games if you really are a good mid player. So, some mid heroes that I'd recommend for new players would be like Zeus and Sniper. I'd recommend like Zeus and Sniper. They're both very easy to play. Also, very good heroes right now. So let's move on to the off lane, shall we?
The path is clear.
So let's go over the positions one more time. Up here, you're gonna have your position 1. And your position 5 in your top lane. In the mid lane, you're going to have your position 2, your mid laner. And then down here, in the bottom lane, you are going to have your position 3, which is your off laner. in your position 4, which is your soft support. Now, onto the offlane. So the offlane, basically, your objective is to try and get farm if you can, but it's really like don't focus on the farm as much as you really want to focus on shutting down their carry player, shutting down the enemy carry player. You want to take as much farm away from him as well as harassing him all the time. Bully their enemy carry, just bully, bully, bully. And as a new player, I know it's tempting. Do not focus down their supports as much. You really need to be focusing on their enemy carry so he doesn't get farm. So, let's see. As an offlaner, you're probably gonna die a lot, but if you're a good offlaner, you can really win games by just shutting down their enemy carry. And it's a very hard role to play, but some people really do love playing the offlane. If you're kind of that player that really loves that bully role, just to really win games by just aggro onto their enemies, this might be the role for you.
The path is clear.
So some offlaners that I'd recommend for new players would be like Bristleback. I think he's a very good offlaner for new players. And actually Enchantress. I love playing Enchantress offlane. She can just do so much damage early on and really shut down their carries. That probably might be a little bit of biased because I pretty much only play Enchantress offlane.
None shall hinder me.
When I do play offlane.
I go.
So yeah, go for it. She may be a complexity 2, but she's really not that hard to play. She might take a couple games to learn, but she's not too bad. Alright, so next up we have our position 4, or our soft support as we call it. So your position 4 is going to be the guy that's kind of helping your offlaner to get some farm, but it's almost a lot like the offlaner where you're just going to be harassing the enemy carry for the very early game. But the position 4 is generally not in lane that much. It's really all about kind of ganking and being, as a position 4, I cannot stress this enough, you need to always be there for the team fights. Always. If you really like fighting, then position 4 might be for you. Like if you just want to be in a ton of fights, then go for it. You're not going to carry a game as position 4, no. I mean, you might if you're like insane, but get his last hit.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Magically
so where was I? If you're like an insane position 4, sure you can carry your games, but most of the time, no. You're just gonna be there for added support during the team fights. I would almost call them like the position 4s or roaming gankers. That's kind of what I would call them. And you're also support, so don't forget, put up your wards, please. As a new player, I recommend this. If you want to play support, either position 4 or position 5, watch a guide on ward placement. Really, I'm telling you, just do it. It'll help you out so much. Your teammates will like you so much more if you put up proper wards. And it's really not that hard to do. People just don't do it correctly because they simply just don't care to learn how to do it the right way. Which is stupid because I feel like if you want to play support, you should definitely learn how to play support, if you know what I'm saying. I can't talk right now. I'm sorry.
Your middle tower is under attack.
This is the second time making this video, so my words are kind of getting... No, we love our support players. That's the thing. If you want a pretty breezy role, then go for one of the support roles. Like, I mean, they're not like that easy, but there's not really that much. How do I say this?
Truth compels me.
If you lose, it's probably not your fault. That's kind of what I'm. As position 4, position 5. Because your roles are much more just supporting your team, helping them win, and as your position 4, you're really just kind of like that, almost a core, but not really, kind of a hero. And just always be there for those fights. And say you're as a position 4, say your top lane's doing real bad, they need some help, then of course you're going to leave, because one thing about the off lane, you can leave the off lane, right? Just make sure your position 3 is there. Don't leave the off lane by itself. If your position 3 is there, then you can leave, right? You can definitely leave the off lane. So some good position 4s that I would recommend are like Jakiro or someone like Skyrath
Your
Mage.
middle
They're both
tower is
great
under attack.
great position 4s for new players. So yeah, let's get into the position 5, shall we?
I turn magic aside.
So your position 5 is going to be your hard support. These are the guys that are going to be putting up the wards all the time, and they're really just going to be supporting the heck out of their carry. Your job is to make sure that your carry is having an easy time in lane. Make sure you're pulling creeps for them. If you don't know what pulling creeps is, then it's pretty simple.
Yes.
It's kind of hard to execute for new players, but make sure you're doing that. You can look up a guide on how to pull creeps. It's not too bad. Make sure you're putting up proper wards. Make sure you're harassing the enemy team. And make sure you're not stealing your carry's farm, because I think new players might be doing this on accident just because they don't know. Your carry needs farm. You are position 5. You do not need farm. If your carry is not there, then sure, go for it. Take some farm. Right? Everybody needs gold. But the position 5s need the least amount of gold, and your carries that you're playing with in lane need the most amount of gold. So make sure you're not taking their last hits, okay? Just give them space so they can get their last hits and get their XP. Just harass the enemies, put up wards, and have an easy game as a position 5. I mean, it sounds easy, but I do think the supports are a little bit harder of a role to play because they've just got a lot to do, and they have to do it correctly. But if you, I mean, I don't think a lot of people want to do support. I think the best thing about support is that there's never enough support players, that people actually want to play support.
None shall be.
And if you can play support every game, like people will actually genuinely like you. No one's going to be toxic to a support player. I mean, it does happen, of course, but
Your bottom tower is
people
under
like their
attack.
supports because they know they're not going to do it, and they need someone to do it. And you're I think as a
The path
support,
is clear.
you're very unselfish.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
Because number one, you're
Yes.
playing support, and number two, I mean, the whole role is about helping out your team. It's no, I don't know. I really like support players that actually want to play support. I really, there's no, you can't be mean to support players. Like,
A blessing.
all right. So I think I went over that. Okay, we need to talk about a couple of heroes for position 5. I recommend Ogre Magi. So easy to play and so good.
Your
Such a
middle
good
tower
hero.
is under attack.
Also, I recommend Crystal Maiden. She's very easy to play, although she does have a pretty slim health bar, so be careful not to feed. Do not feed with her, because it is very easy to do so. Do not go chasing after enemies with Crystal Maiden. Just stay in the back, use your spells, and give your carry an easy time in lane, because she have a very squishy health bar. Alright, and the last thing I want to talk about is don't just pick your role based on what everybody wants you to play. I started out playing mid lane, and I really enjoyed it. And that's one of the hardest roles to play in Dota, but I played it for like my first 100 games, and because that's what I wanted to do. And I think the best way to learn is in a position that you actually genuinely want to play, not something that just people are making you play, because you're not going to have fun if you're playing a role you don't want to play, and you're not going to learn anything. You're just going to be mad all the time. So like if you want to play carry, but people are making you play offlane, play carry. Screw them. You go play carry. Now, I'm not saying like every game auto lock carry because I told you to do that. No. If your team needs help, obviously fill that role. I think it's very helpful for you to learn every role in Dota. So you'll always have at least have one hero for every role that you can play, probably 2 in case that hero gets banned. Just so you're never out of options. Like if your team really needs a hard support, make sure that you have a hero that you know you can play for that. But most of the time, if you really want to play a role, your team is most of the time will let you play that role, right? It's not that big of a deal. So with that, thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something. That was the whole point. We'll see you in the next one.